A lot of stuff has happened. We saw Luka Doncic get introduced, Anthony Davis get introduced, AD's debut, and then exit with injury, and Luka's supposed to debut tomorrow. What was your biggest takeaway from this week, the thing that stood out most to you over the course of the last crazy 7 days?
For me personally, it was just the fact that the general manager had the full support of ownership to do what is a franchise-defining move. Typically in a move like this, ownership is going to intervene and say, hey, whoa, wait a minute, I don't know about this. But Patrick Dumont and the Adelson group decided we're going to leave the basketball with the basketball people, and Nico Harrison decided this guy's not going to stay healthy. He's not going to listen to us. We've begged him, we've talked to him, we've bullied him to trying to get him to do what we want. You're gone. And that is something that we have not seen here since before Mark Cuban bought the team, and clearly he's no longer any part of this ownership group whatsoever.
Hey, Clarence, you got boxed out there. Go ahead.
That's okay. As I started saying, for me personally, it's been the way the Mavericks have kicked Luka out as he's gone out the door. The constant criticism of Luka. It's one thing to do the trade, and you have every right to trade what's best for your franchise, but to continue to badmouth Luka on the way out the door, and you saw what their governor told the Dallas Morning News, I guess yesterday or today, and certainly we know what Nico has said. Luka's done so much for the franchise, and been in such a savior for a lot of Mavericks fans. You can point to the future if you're talking about the team and about the decisions, but to continue to talk about he was a bad culture fit and things like that, that does nobody any good.
The loyalty aspect of all of this has been brought up. Luka even mentioned loyalty in his press conference with the Lakers. Mavs have been spoiled silly with loyalty. I mean, very few teams in all of sports get an owner as dedicated. No one's really like Mark Cuban. Like to be what he was for the Mavericks, sitting courtside, joking around with players and joking around with refs. He was like one of one in terms of sports owners in that regard. Then you get Dirk and Donnie Nelson in the front office. I mean, there was a whole regime for the Mavericks that basically stayed in place for almost 3 decades. And so there's a whole generation of Mavericks fans, millennials, who have only known that kind of loyalty. Hi, Andrew.
I'm one of them.
So that's all they've experienced. So this, what they're now facing now, is kind of the cold reality of sports that a lot of other fan bases kind of have experienced, but just the fact that it wasn't on Luka asking for a trade, which is normally how a lot of this stuff goes. But I want to pivot to Anthony Davis because that debut started off so great. But Mac, your kind of takeaway with how it ended, because it felt like this was probably Nico Harrison's greatest fear in terms of the injury.
Well, I think in one game we saw the why with Anthony Davis, and then we saw, that's why with Anthony Davis. No one can question his credentials. He's a phenomenal player. This is an all-NBA defensive player of the year, all-NBA, game changer, championship title contender type of player. He can't stay healthy. And we saw that in one game, his first game. And I know there in the press conference, Jonah, there on Friday afternoon, he was asked about his injuries, and he said, they're just kind of freak injuries. Well, maybe that's the case. But if it keeps happening, it's not a freak injury. It's a trend. It's a problem. And he's going to be out for several weeks. And I'm sorry, this team's window right now with Kyrie at 32 and Anthony Davis at 32, and it's closed if he can't play. And right now, he's going to be on the bench again.
Clarence, what do you think?
Yeah, no question. It's about staying healthy. He has a nickname Street Clothes for a reason. So, all over social media, they're calling him Street Clothes. But remember this, Anthony Davis played more games than Luka did last year. He did play a lot of games last year. Certainly the injuries have popped up. It's been an issue. This trade, his time with the Mavs, you talk about Kyrie being older, Anthony being older, will be judged at the end of the season. Certainly the window is to win now. We'll see how they do in the playoffs. This is not a serious injury. But I think one reason this probably popped up is because he was rushing to play on Saturday as soon as they can because of all the negativism toward the trade, and he probably wasn't ready to play at that time. Get him healthy. Let's see how it goes. One thing I want to go back with the loyalty thing we talked about earlier. The Mavs are spoiled. Mav fans are spoiled. Dirk that's not normal. Okay,
Right.
that's not normal in today's NBA to have the career that Dirk had. People forget they traded Steve Nash. Okay, they got rid of Steve Nash. I mean, he's a guy you could have been loyal to. He was close to Dirk, and we forget that they got rid of Steve Nash. This is the NBA of today. The idea that somebody's going to stay with your franchise for 20 years, that's not realistic.
But it does kind of buck the trend recently with Giannis and Jokic, who have kind of started reestablishing that part in the NBA. I think the thing, and you touched on it, Clarence, was I thought Anthony Davis was pressing a little bit in that first game, like just to kind of show I can do the 40-point games, I can play on both ends and be that guy. And it just kind of felt like this is a marathon, dude. We're about halfway through this thing. You don't need to come out and win the NBA title on the first game. And maybe it was overreacting a little bit, but it did definitely feel like he had maybe a little too much to prove right out the gate, Jonah.
Yeah, it just felt like Anthony Davis plays the hits all encompassed into one game. And Matt kind of touched on it. You kind of saw the brilliance, but also why every time since this trade we've said almost verbatim, Anthony Davis is a great player, and it's always followed by the injury history. And now it's happened, sure enough, after one game. And Mavs fans got to be like looking at Nico like this. We told you this was the fear.